Okay, more fun with the modern mystical. Yeah, this one is a little too mystical for me. Anyway, so we're progressing into this conversation. This video is really strange. Rule 1 of ultimate reality, and he's talking basically about like a perceptual levels. So you could understand things. You would like naive people would talk about free will, and then smarter people, more knowledgeable people, would understand that no, there was no freedom in your life experience. You're pretty much a byproduct will of your life experience, of the people you've known and met, and what you've seen on TV, and what politicians you've heard, and the speeches you've heard, and all the things you've heard and done and experienced. And that's pretty much you're the byproduct of all of that. And there's not much freedom in any of that. And certainly as you get smarter and smarter, you are limited by your knowledge. Like if you're a very good architect, you can't make a very bad building because you know better, so you don't make bad buildings. You make good buildings because you're a very good architect. Your knowledge is good, and it prevents you from doing stupid things. So as you get smarter and more perceptive, you're at a different level. You're functioning through a different understanding. His theory is that as you go these higher levels, that ultimately the highest level would be this where it's really understood that the universe is just universing, and suffering doesn't matter, feelings don't matter, whatever happens happens, none of it matters. It can happen any way it wants, and it all doesn't matter somehow. That none of it was real somehow, and certainly I can't see from that perspective. I can't see any ladder. I can't see a staircase. I see absolutely nothing supporting him as he walks up in that level and talks down at me these magical words of don't worry, be happy, it's all under control, nothing to see here. And yeah, I have no confidence in his assurance that it all doesn't matter, that there is no real anything, and there's certainly no such thing as a real bad, a real qualitative event that we are capable of recognizing, through our intelligence. That was a word I used. Mattering is recognition of significance. That there's something. That's how something becomes something that matters. It doesn't matter to you. It's not about it mattering to you. It's about it having significance in and of itself. It's just a fact. The fact is declared significant. Jew in concentration camp. This is creating a brain in distress, having unpleasant negative feelings as it dies of starvation and typhus, and it goes through the process of slowly dying of this attrition, and it's not a good thing. Be better if it was eating ice cream at the delicatessen than doing this dying thing in the concentration camp. Yeah, and so we can recognize that there's a distinction between those two events. One event is benign, and one event is malignant in terms of its offense to some sort of value thing. It matters. So again, I don't know. He's so cynical in this video, in just insulting the very idea of even having the conversation. It's all about, he's just doing it for his own entertainment. It beats watching football on TV. So, and that's just, it's so glib again. I mean, I hate to think of him as a glibite, but yeah, just another glibite. Another non-consequentialist. It's so discouraging that this would manifest in things I think of as being sort of intelligent, perceptive brains, that this glibness would like the Borg, just take them over, and they would be incapable of taking anything seriously. But anyway, besides the point, it is an interesting conversation just about this level thing, and the fact that his argument would be that there's no point in having this conversation unless you can all agree on the level you're going to have the conversation at, and everybody has to stay on the same level. He makes the accusation that I jump levels, which I don't think is a legitimate accusation. It's easy to make these accusations, so yeah, go ahead and make them. I don't think you're going to prove them in any substantial way. Especially that there's any egregious amount of level jumping. I'm usually pretty careful. That's why I make long videos. I usually go through the explanation that here's step A, here's step B, here's step C, here's step D. It's like in the physics conversations or anything else, I kind of try to explain, well, this is what we can establish as something we know, and now let's put these pieces together and see what we can guess at. Well, anyway, like I said, I'm defending myself against, again, accusations. Sleeves of accusations. They just bend their wrists up and let the accusations fly out like pigeons. So anyway, but I mean, the idea that yes, that this is a concession you have to make is that to having a conversation, it's like the real value in our conversations in the past. I think they did have value. We came up with this concept of me brain, as a kind of a joke phrase, but it's kind of an interesting joke phrase, and that me brain does things. There's no I, there's me brain. There's my brain running programs, different programs. And the conversation about the different motivational organisms that's kind of still live inside of us. The crude lizard and the emotional monkey, and then this higher order IBM style intelligence that can sit on top and be very logical, and can criticize the other beasties that we are, the other players. I'd say it was a fundamental part of our brain. Even we can sit there and say, okay, at level 50, you might be talking about the brain as just being reflexes, and that they're all pre-programmed reflexes, all deterministic, that logic is part of an inevitable deterministic outcome, and evolution is going to favor things that do certain things within certain parameters that are just going to be logical. You eat more food, you're more likely to live, blah, 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 blah. These kind of simple 2 + 2 = 4 kind of logical outcomes are going to, over time, reveal themselves. And that part of our function is going to be like that. But I think part of our conversation in just talking about brains has had me understanding better that there is this 2 parts to our brain. Beyond talking lizard and monkey, this idea of a motivating brain, a brain that reacts to the world and creates the urgency of sensation. It flavors the world. It adds a color, a noise, a vibration, or whatever you want to call it. It colors it with a reaction. And the other part of the brain sees the reaction, that initial reaction of a feeling, pain, irritating smell, pleasant smell, whatever, as a problem to be solved. So now the first reaction, we look at the world, we feel the world, we sense the world, our brain reacts. The first initial reaction is to color it with these sensations. And now our next shot at the apple, our next bite of the apple, isn't just the apple, it's the apple with the worm in it, or the apple with the, it now has the emotion, and the emotion we have to react to, we have to do something about. It's added some motivation, some fear, something, because it sensed something that exists. It's dark outside, there's a shadow over there, there's something to give us a query, an uneasiness, a tension. And now our second bite is at a world that we've now exaggerated. It's like heightening the contrast, maybe you could think of it that way. The world comes in flat, and then our brain in its first reaction heightens the contrast, tries to find things that are worthy of our notice, and then exaggerate them, and then sometimes flavor them with a fear, or flavor them with a piqued interest. And that this creates motivation, because the positive and negative feelings are strong, and we're aggressive in terms of wanting to get the foot out of the fire. So when the brain puts the foot in the fire, and the brain puts it in there, right? It's not the foot being in the fire that matters. It's the brain saying your foot is in the fire that matters. It's your brain creating the urgency that makes it, the foot, come out of the fire, or the need for us to make the foot come out of the fire. It's not just a suggestion anymore. So anyway, the point I wanted to get to is just it's like these two brains communicating with each other. So it's no longer, you know, this is the fudginess of it. It's still all deterministic. It's still all reflexes, but the reflexes being bounced off of almost two different programs. You know, one that's visceral, ignorant, let's even say, crude. You know, our intuition, our nature, and then this more sophisticated life experience, I know better kind of brain. And these two are throwing the tennis ball back and forth kind of thing, and you know, playing the game with each other, with what comes in from reality. And that adds doesn't change the deterministic reality that the outcome will be the same in terms of the brain will react, and I'll have a programmed reaction, but it certainly does change the amount of time. It takes longer for the reaction to come that way, and the reaction is now going to be more sophisticated than if there was just one device reacting. Now it's kind of a consensus between the two. There has to be a compromise between the emotional animal and the intellectual animal. They sort of have to bargain with each other to come out with an end result that's satisfactory, where we feel safe enough to walk down the alley or do whatever it is we're going to do, even though we have the emotional apprehension. Our rationalizing brain has given us enough encouragement to push us through. Anyway, that's getting off on another subject. But I mean, certainly you can have lots of conversations on these different levels. And, yeah. But I don't think you could argue. I'm just saying you're making an argument for a rather extraordinary, you're making a rather extraordinary claim. And extraordinary claims ought to have some sort of reasoning with them. And I don't see any reasoning here. I don't see the fact that you want to be very harsh in your deterministic mechanicalness of all the atoms and photons and everything's moving, and turning that into, well, now I can negate the existence of sensation. I can negate the function of a brain, the fact that it is bouncing this electricity around and doing its tricks, and that this phenomenon of consciousness is obviously experiencing it. It is happening, and I don't see any rational way you get to a higher plane where all of a sudden you can make it go away. And certainly I don't see how you're going to make the fundamental, built into the mechanism function of the negative sensation, the negative nature of the sensation of pain. It's intended to be negative. It was made to be negative. It was made to do something to create an aversion. That's its whole function, and it works very well. And it's just kind of silly to say it doesn't work well, it isn't designed that way, it isn't that thing. I mean, it is. And it is, through that process, created a significance. It's significantly different. So in this video, he's going to go back to my mouse analogy, the dead mouse versus the living mouse, and he's going to just basically explicitly say that apparently when you get to level 62 or whatever, you can't tell the difference between the conscious sentient mouse and the dead mouse. And you can't tell the difference for a good reason. That good reason escapes me entirely. Yeah, I don't know what you're going to make that good reason out of. So anyway, this was a lot longer of a prequel. Sorry. So yeah, I'll just play some of this and play with it. So he's really talking to Trick in this video, just explaining his understanding of the hierarchy of being a philosopher, being a knowledgeable person, being intelligent, and that there are these levels of intelligence. And it's just a fact, you know, that you need a certain amount of knowledge to be able to fluently or usefully talk on some subjects. You know, just is true. You can't talk about the thermodynamics or something. If you know, you have to have a certain understanding of the science to have a reasonable conversation about the subject. And the same is true in philosophy, that the nature of our existence does have some levels to it, and one of them would be the understanding that there is no I, there's your brain, and your brain has been programmed and configured. All the little springs have been compressed by events in your existence, and you are shaped entirely by that experience.
Got blown up to make way for an intergalactic highway. It's in the Vogon, it doesn't. And then when you think about it, well, no, not.
Yeah, so there he was using some sort of, you know, joke that if the Vogons wanted to make an intergalactic highway and they had to blow up the Earth, does it matter? Well, we might agree that that doesn't matter if they do it quick. I mean, if they do it slow and torture all the things on the Earth over a 10,000-year period, slowly frying them to death under a microscope or a magnifying glass, well, then you got another, you know, if Vogons are a bunch of 5-year-old Vogons and they decide to use a magnifying glass and burn all the little living things on the planet Earth, that would be a different question, wouldn't it? So yeah, I mean, certainly you're not going to get me to say, oh yeah, what a horror, the idiot Earthlings are gone. Yeah, no, obviously I don't have any use for living things, so their absence isn't going to disturb me any. And I certainly don't think it's any theory that can be made up to say the universe or anything's going to miss them. They're just harmables. They just create the opportunity for harm. So yeah, more power to the Vogons. But I would assume the Vogons are also sentient, so it would be just as well they got killed too, because they're not probably functioning with any kind of level of efficiency either. So yeah, it'd be good if they fell into the sewer or something. Yeah, quickly broke their neck.
Really? Or does it? It depends what level you're talking about. You can go down to micro levels, that's the big level. You can imagine the entire universe bigger than just Vogons. The entire universe, does it matter what happens on Earth? Not really.
Well, again, it's not about what happens mattering to a universe or the universe being panicked about it, but certainly whether it matters or not is, I think, just, you know, the question is easy to answer. Does it matter whether something is in pain when it could be in not pain? Yeah, it matters. If you have a choice between something being in pain and something not being in pain, that choice is real. There's a better outcome. So it matters in the sense that there's an outcome for which there's a distinction, a meaningful distinction. There's a meaningful distinction between 6 trillion Jews in a concentration camp and 6 trillion Jews eating ice cream. It's a meaningful distinction.
Go to a micro level. Gary just a few videos ago did the idea of a dead mouse and a live mouse side by side. Does it matter that there's a difference? Not really. One's got a different brain configuration than the other. One's got what we call a dead brain configuration, one's got a live brain configuration. Does it matter?
Yeah, one's conscious, one's not conscious. He's saying there's no significant distinction between those two states of being. That's supposed to be a higher level of conversation. I'm saying, how do I can't see it. I can't see how, as you get smarter, you get less capable of recognizing a distinction that seems rock solid. I mean, if there's anything that's really different, it's really different being dead and unconscious and being conscious and alive. I mean, if there's two things that are pretty frickin' fucking different, those two things are pretty frickin' fucking different.
No, not really. Does it matter if I'm dead? I've got a dead brain configuration. Not to me. Would it matter to Mrs. Mystic?
Well, it doesn't. Again, you keep turning this into some subject has to make a determination, and the determination is discovered. The answer is discovered in the truth, in the reality. It's true. You don't make it true by discovering it. You discover the truth value of it. There is a truth value that there's a distinction between you being alive and you being dead. Now, whether or not there's any benefit, in terms of cost effectiveness between those two things, that question can only be answered by knowing what your life experience is going to be. So if you're going to die, now versus 10 minutes from now, all right, well then we can say, well, what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes? And is that next 10 minutes going to create some sort of value where it would be desirable to extend your life another 10 minutes, or would it be desirable to get it over with now, because that extra 10 minutes is just going to be pain and suffering? So I mean, you're asking questions that aren't incomplete. They're incomplete questions.
Matters only if you understand what mattering is. Mattering would be a different brain configuration.
No, mattering is not a different brain configuration. Mattering is insignificance, is something recognized. The difference between 2 and 3 is something recognized. We don't make up the difference. 2 fingers, 3 fingers. That difference, I didn't make it up. It really exists. The difference between dead and unconscious, alive and conscious, is a real difference. I'm not making it up.
Would it be bad to have a bit different brain configuration? Depends what you mean by bad.
There you go. Well, it depends on what you mean by bad. Well, that's what the whole conversation is about. Is that what I mean by bad is that when sentient beings experience pain, that creates bad. That's the origin of it, the first ouch. Before a sentient existed in the universe, there was no capacity for the universe to do something that could be called significant, because nothing that could feel could be impacted. Without impacting a sentient, there's no mattering, there's no significance. It is all just bouncing balls in a nothing. That is the real creation of value, and that's my whole point, is in making this stupid synthetic brain, in making this thinking machine, the biology made the mistake of making a real value engine.
This is what I'm talking about, levels. On the micro level, take everything down to atoms that I think I do all the time. Nothing matters when you take it down to a micro sort of level. But these are different levels. Talking about different levels is what I'm talking about. And
yeah, so now he's making distinctions between levels of the physical complexity and then the levels of the conversations. And now there's these two things, these two subjects are not getting mixed, and that's just going to make it even more complicated. There's level of complexity, and then there's level of conversation. Yeah, no need to get there. But certainly I've made the accusation that your reductionism, you're going back to levels that aren't relevant to the level that's creating the phenomenon. You can negate the function of something by that kind of deconstruction, but you can only negate it in the sense that you're remaining blind to the real world. And in the real world, all the levels exist on top of each other. Okay, the macro level does not exist separate from the other levels built on top of it. So you can't escape. You can put a magnifying glass on a hair on your toe. By doing that, you haven't taken your head off. You haven't removed your body. You haven't destroyed the rest of you. The rest of you still exists and is still functioning. So the fact that you're changing your intellectual focus, or what you're looking at, or how you're looking at it, doesn't change the fact that the universe still has all those levels in a sandwich, and those can't be separated. So regardless of what you're looking at, the fact is the plane's still flying, so to speak.
If you hop and choose between the levels when discussing anything, you're completely wasting your time, and whether you can really waste time is a different level as well, of course.
Yeah, well, wasting time would be the same thing as wasting suffering. So, you know, time, the only value time would have, I think logically, if you're at my level 60, say my level 60 would be, the only value time has is that it gives you opportunity to construct strategies for the mitigation, or the fight against the brokenness that's creating excessive pain. So getting rid of the friction of pain, time gives you opportunity to do that. So if you waste time, if you use time to do something else by clean up the mess, then the mess gets left uncleaned, and that's a negative. So yeah, time can be wasted because you're not using it to its maximum efficiency in mitigating against the negative of the suffering sentient.
So, take Gary, because it's always good to talk about him, because we know him. He swaps and changes between different levels about what matters, and then is surprised.
Well, see, that's the accusation, but I don't... whatever. Whatever.
When people pull other things out of different levels to try and negate what he's talking about. You know, he tries to say, you should be nice to people because that makes civilization nicer, and somebody will pull a Vogon trick on him, or some equivalent, or this stupid subjective and objective thing, which could be described as different levels. What I'm talking about in levels is, this is talk.
Yeah, well, that doesn't explain how I have done the trespass on levels. So again, they're obviously trying to break the rules, you know, to pretend that some bigotries are okay. You know, it's a natural bigotry, therefore it's okay. Nature made me do it. Yeah, I mean, that's like a level 12. You don't have to be very old to get that one right? Could do this by age, you know. Yeah, you don't have to be much more than a 12-year-old to say, yeah, something doesn't smell right about that. Nature made me do it.
Walking down the pub where I say what happens to me matters, that's level 1, let's say. What happens to me and the missus, that matters. Me and my team and my country might be level 5.
Yeah, no, see, that's where I'd even say you're wrong. I'd say that's going below level 1. That's below being being selfish might be level 5. All right, being selfish in defense of pure bigotry, you know, loving yourself sort of makes sense. When you're giving love to your team based on nothing, not earning it, okay, just because they're your race, it's humankind, you know, whatever the thing is, that bigotry would almost be lower. That would be like a negative level. You know, that's the basement.
Whatever, you know, getting more advanced in thinking. But there's no point swapping and changing and trying to discuss things with anybody at all ever. And this is why it never works on YouTube. It never...
Yeah, again, so this whole never works on YouTube. So he's just negating, like I said, I've been talking to the mystic for 6 years, whatever it's been. And I think a lot of the conversations were useful. I think a lot of my conversation has improved in terms of being able to articulate things and explain things conceptually through those conversations. So, you know, it's his prerogative to say it never leads to anything. It's his prerogative to say he doesn't see any value in it. The very reason why I do watch videos is because I do see that potential, because I've experienced the potential in the past. People have said things, not too many, but it does happen, that are insightful, and that that provide means and material for better perception and more clarity in how we describe things, and better use of a better word or a better phrase. You know, I mean, I can't say that, you know, we're all byproduct, right? Again, this argument of byproduct. You know, you know, we're creating each other by these conversations. I could say I came up with precious commodities controlled by crude forces, but the truth is, the compilation of my conversations with other people produced that arrangement of words.
Works in real life, and you'll never ever see it work, because you'll never get two people talking about anything on the same level. Now, I might get...
Yeah, see, I just, you know, it's wrong. I mean, it's not true, but okay, go ahead and be that cynical. I don't, you know, I don't care. You do have, you have written all over yourself this willingness to just bail at any moment and say this is all a waste of time and blah blah blah. So okay, I mean, your casual connection to anything meaning anything is quite obvious, so I'm getting that. But understand why I find it a little bit obnoxious, because from the level I'm on, this casual playing with it looks a little sadistic, looks a little cruel, looks like somebody, you know, pulling the wings off a fly and playing with it. It just don't look right to me.
Upset or something, it's only hypothetical. If, let's say, I'm talking to somebody and we really know, I'd have to be talking to myself, that we're really about level 32, pretty advanced, deep shit, and we're talking about one particular aspect of that, and we might have a discussion about it, and it might get serious. But otherwise, all of this is just wibbly wobbly, jibbly jobbly, because everybody is talking at different levels. And
yeah, well, whatever. Like I said, you say all of it. And again, no one's asking for much from this conversation except for you on your, you know, walking on your clouds. He actually has the lyrics from a song in his description. You know, I've looked at life from both sides now, whatever that song was. That was a good song. But anyway, I mean, it's chick singing, you know, so I always like that. But anyway, you know, just to reduce it all to gibbly gobbly goo, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's frustrating that you do have to preface everything, and you have to be redundant, and you have to be really careful about exactly what you say. And then sometimes I'm going to say I, or I'm going to say something where I should have said me brain, or my brain says. You know, my brain thinks.
Nobody will ever make any sense of what anybody else says, because if they don't want to, they'll just swap to a different level, because everybody knows at least, you know, a dozen levels.
Yeah, but again, that's really not going to work. You know, I mean, you can see people do that, and then you catch them and you say, I got you, you know, what are you doing? You can't go there. It's like just all of a sudden you're going to say God did it. No.
They can use in different on different occasions. You know, intelligent people do. Really dim shits that say only I matter. Well,
yeah. Well, I just say it would be a pretty dim shit intelligent person who is deliberately and willfully slaughtering the truth to evade losing an argument. It'd be a pretty big dim shit, in my opinion.
There's no point talking to them anyway. But this is why this whole Gary value, whatever, subjective, objective philosophy is totally and utterly useless. Well, useless, futile, because you'll never nail people to know what level they're talking on.
Yeah, well, I think I can do that, though. I think I can. Me and Trick could probably work out some. We have some disagreements. We can argue those because we could sort of agree on, yeah, consciousness exists. We got certain things that we're going to accept. But yeah, I can't do it with you because, yeah, you're obviously this negating of reality. All configurations of matter are the same. It doesn't matter whether it's 6 trillion or 6 Jews in the concentration camp. Yeah, we're just not going to be able to go anywhere with that. I could make the entire, like if I gave the, if you're starting a universe over and you walk across a guy who's at level 85 and you say to him, well, you know, what are you going to make the universe out of? And he says, yeah, I think I'll just make it out of brain tumors and kittens. You know, so the whole universe is just kittens with brain tumors in hysterical pain. Yeah, okay. Doesn't matter. It's fine. It's a great idea. I'm sorry. I don't think that's a level. I don't think it is. I think that's some kind of other phenomenon. Some, you know, it is kind of ironic because he has like this. I think this is like a hospital shirt, you know, left over from his surgery. So it does. I do have a feel of the cuckoo's nest here, you know. You know, one who flew over the cuckoo's nest. Yeah, it's kind of a cuckoo's nest look. You know, I'm thinking like group therapy, and the, you know, the crazy bearded guy shows up and starts talking about his levels. Because yeah, it does all sound a little woo-woo to me.
And if you ever do, and they're not happy with it, they'll just hop to another level, a higher level or a lower level, to negate what you're talking about. This is why on comments I try. If I see somebody's, say, coming in at the single figures level, I'll throw something in the 20s at them. This is just a bit more advanced to make them think, and can be amused when they either don't see it or don't want to see it. But it's just pure amusement.
Yeah, these are just amusements. So this is his amusement, probably mostly on free will type subjects. You know, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's fun just to, you know, find out how, well, what's a, you know, get people to tell you what a free is. Show me something free. You know, show me one of those free things.
The whole of this is pure amusement because it's just a fool's errand trying to talk about this sort of subject unless you know what the person is, the level they're talking on. And
yeah, well, I don't think it's really about the level you're talking on, right? I mean, I don't think that's the way I would describe it, but yeah, there's a certain constituent of thought traps that you have to be aware of, and so you don't fall into those thought traps of, you know, thinking about your brain as if you are doing something when it's your subconscious that's, you know, my subconscious just wrote this sentence and just made my mouth say it. I didn't have anything to do with it. I really didn't, I promise. I'm just sitting here minding my own business, and my brain is saying this shit. And I'm saying, wow, I just said shit again. Oh, I said shit again. I just said shit again. I said shit again. I mean, it could get caught in a feedback loop, but I'm just saying, I'm just watching. I'm just witnessing me perform. I'm not doing anything else. It's all being forced by some other mechanism over which I have no control. I mean, I really don't. I can't just, don't make it happen. It happens.
they're going to stay on that level, and of course they never will. So the whole thing's a complete waste of time.
Well, again, I don't think it's a whole thing. It's a complete waste of time. I don't think there's that much constituent knowledge that you have to have before you can have something called an intelligent conversation about reality. And again, I'm just saying that I think what's happening here is that you're taking this 30, 40 level and this next jump to the 50, 60 level, and I don't see any staircases. I don't see any rational way you get to those levels. So however you're getting to that level, I don't think it's, again, I don't think it's legitimate. I think you're walking on airy-fairy, not anything real. So anyway, anything legitimate. Yeah, okay. So anyway, well, I'll play the very end.
But it's time. It's slightly better than, as long as you've got a cat on your knee, it's better than watching football. So yeah.
Yeah, so again, just so glib. Glib, glib, glib. Yuck. Anyway, till next time. And such. Let's see how to finish this off. It's about value, though. Value being something we discover to exist. We identify it. I'm saying it's identifiable in the sentient organism. That's where the diamonds are. They're in the sentient brain. The value diamonds are in sentient brains. And they exist as experiences. And they don't exist anywhere else. Anyway, until next time.